Take a slow breath in. And let it out gently. Nothing needs to happen quickly now. There is no task. No goal. No urgent ending. Long ago, before clocks mattered. Before people measured success. Before anyone checked a phone. There was a land called Greece. And Greece was quiet. The hills did not move. The sea rose and fell without excitement. The air rested softly on stone buildings that had been standing for so long. They had forgotten when they were built. Above this land, high and still, stood Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus was not dramatic all the time. Most days, it was simply there. The clouds drifted slowly around its peak. Never in a hurry. Never trying to impress anyone. This was where the gods lived. Not shouting. Not throwing lightning. Just existing. Zeus, the king of the gods, sat on his throne. The throne did not sparkle today. It was just a chair made of stone and gold. Cold when you first sat down. Comfortable only because Zeus had sat there for so long. Zeus was not angry. He was not making plans. He was simply sitting. His thunderbolt lay nearby. Unused. Ignored. Gathering the soft dust of time. Zeus looked out across the clouds. And thought of nothing important. When you rule everything, some days feel very empty. He adjusted his shoulders. Shifted his weight slightly. And continued sitting. Nearby, Hera stood quietly. She was the queen of the gods. But even queens have slow days. She walked across the marble floor. Her footsteps echoing softly. Then stopping. She fixed a fold in her robe. Even though it did not really need fixing. Then she stood still again. Nothing demanded her attention. No prayers rose loudly enough. No arguments needed judging. She sighed gently. A long sigh. The kind that doesn't mean sadness. Only stillness. Down another quiet hall. Hestia tended the sacred fire. Hestia never rushed. She never shouted. She never wanted attention. The flame in front of her was small and calm. It did not flare. It did not dance wildly. It simply burned. Hestia added one piece of wood. Then waited. Then watched the flame respond slowly. Fire had its own pace. And Hestia respected it. She sat beside the hearth. Hands folded. Eyes half closed. Keeping the fire alive was not exciting. But it was steady. And steadiness was enough. Outside, Athena sat near a tall pillar. Athena was the goddess of wisdom. But wisdom is often very quiet. She held a helmet in her hands. Turning it slowly. Not thinking of war. Not thinking of strategy. Just feeling the weight of it. Her owl perched nearby. Not hooting. Not flapping. Simply resting. Athena watched the clouds drift. And did not try to analyze them. Even wisdom needs rest. Hermes walked along a long path that wound around Olympus. Hermes liked walking. Not fast walking. Just walking. His winged sandals did not lift him into the sky today. They touched the ground, step by step. Stone. Dust. Stone again. He walked. Then walked some more. There were no messages to deliver. No souls to guide. No tricks to play. Just one step. Then another. The path seemed endless. But Hermes did not mind. Endless paths are good when you have nowhere to be. Far below, in the world of mortals, a small village slept. The houses were simple. Stone walls, wooden doors. A dog curled beside a doorway, breathing slowly. Inside one home, a family slept on woven mats. No dreams worth remembering. No nightmares worth fearing. Just sleep. The olive trees outside moved gently in the wind, their leaves whispering about nothing important at all. Back on Olympus, Apollo leaned against a column. His lyre rested against the wall. He did not play it. Music existed, but it was not needed right now. Even beauty deserves quiet moments. Apollo closed his eyes and listened to the silence between sounds. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of balance. Somewhere far away, Poseidon sat by the shore of his endless sea. The waves were calm. They rolled in slowly, then rolled back out. Poseidon did not command them today. He let them be. His trident stood planted in the sand, unused. Water reflected the sky, and Poseidon watched the reflection change gently, as if time itself were breathing. In the underworld, Hades sat on his dark throne. Not grim, not angry, just still. The souls around him moved quietly, following routines they had followed for centuries. There was no chaos here. Only order. Only repetition. Persephone walked slowly through a field of pale flowers. She touched one bloom, then another. There was no rush to return anywhere. Seasons could wait. Back on Olympus, the sun shifted slightly. The shadows moved across the marble floors. No announcement marked the change. It simply happened. And the gods remained still. Because sometimes, even gods need days when nothing happens. Days with no stories. No heroes. No monsters. Just breath. Stone. Sky. Fire. And rest. Take another slow breath in. Let it travel gently through your chest. And let it go. Nothing else is required right now. Breathe in slowly. And let it leave you even more slowly. The world does not rush tonight. Far below Mount Olympus, past the quiet hills and wandering clouds, there was a small Greek village. The village did not have a famous name. It did not try to be remembered. It simply existed. The stone road leading into the village was uneven, worn smooth by centuries of gentle footsteps. No one repaired it anymore. It did not need repairing. Time itself had already shaped it perfectly. A single torch burned near the entrance. The flame flickered slightly, then returned to stillness. A night breeze passed through the village, touching doorways, brushing against walls, doing nothing important. The houses stood close together, simple and quiet. Stone walls held the warmth of the day. Wooden doors rested in their frames. Most doors were closed. No voices came from inside. Sleep had arrived long ago. A cat stretched itself near a warm rock, then curled back into a smaller shape. There was no sound except breathing, the wind, and the faraway call of an owl that did not expect an answer. In one house, an old man slept alone. His dreams were faint, barely there. He dreamed of walking slowly down a path. He had walked his entire life. In his dream, he did not hurry. There was nowhere else to go. Beside him, an oil lamp burned weakly. Its light moved gently along the wall, casting shadows that did not change much. The lamp would last until morning. It always did. In another home, a woman stirred in her sleep, pulled her blanket closer, and grew still again. She dreamed of bread baking, not the eating of it, just the waiting. Waiting for dough to rise, waiting for heat, waiting for time. Bread requires patience. So does rest. Outside, the olive trees watched over the village. Their trunks were thick and twisted, older than memory. Their leaves whispered softly to one another, repeating the same gentle sounds they had made for hundreds of years. No tree felt the need to speak louder. On a hill just beyond the village, a small shrine stood. It honored a god no one thought about much anymore. The statue was worn smooth, its face barely recognizable. But it did not mind. A god does not need a clear face to be honored by silence. A single offering bowl rested at the base of the statue. It was empty tonight. The god did not feel offended. Emptiness has its own meaning. Above, the stars spread across the sky, not blinking, not moving too fast. Each star kept its quiet place. No constellations tried to impress anyone. They simply shone. Back on Mount Olympus, the gods noticed none of this. They continued their quiet routines. Ars sharpened his spear, without intent. The metal scraped slowly against stone. A sound without urgency. War could wait. Aphrodite brushed her hair, for no reason other than habit. Each stroke was slow, measured. Beauty did not need witnesses tonight. Nearby, Demeter sat beside a basket of grain. She ran her fingers through it, feeling the weight, the texture. Seeds are patient. So was she. She did not think about harvests. She did not worry about famine. Tonight was only about sitting. Hephaestus rested his tools. The forge was cold. The floor still warm. Creation pauses sometimes. Even fire tires. The soft glow of embers faded. Not suddenly, but gently. Below the earth, the underworld moved in its endless, boring rhythm. Souls lined up, then slowly moved forward, then waited again. No complaints, no excitement, just the comfort of order. Charon guided his boat across the dark river, rowing slowly. The water made the same sound it always did. Nothing changed. On the shore, Hermes appeared briefly, then vanished again. Even messages grow tired. Back in the village, the night grew deeper. A rooster shifted on its perch, then decided it was not yet time. Morning could wait. The moon hung above the rooftops, casting pale light across stone and dust. It did not rush across the sky. It followed an old path, one it had walked forever. In a quiet corner of the village, a child slept deeply. No dreams, just rest. Her breathing rose and fell, steady, unconcerned with gods or legends. The myths of Greece were not always battles and heroes. Sometimes they were only this: stillness, routine, The calm spaces between stories. Places where nothing happened. And that was enough. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts become as quiet as the village at night. There is nothing you need to remember. Nothing you need to anticipate. Just stay here. In this gentle pause. And rest. Take a gentle breath in. Let it leave you without effort. Long before anyone thought about greatness, there was a temple on a hill. It was not famous. It was not beautiful anymore. It stood quietly where it had always stood, looking out over land that no longer noticed it. The path leading up to the temple was narrow. Grass grew between the stones. Some stones had shifted. Others had sunk into the earth. No one rushed to fix them. Time had already decided their position. A slow wind moved up the hill, touching the ruined columns one by one. Each column was chipped, faded, still standing. The temple roof had partially collapsed long ago. Light entered easily now, spilling across the marble floor in soft shapes. Dust rose and settled again, as if breathing. Inside the temple, silence lived comfortably. It did not echo. It simply stayed. At the center stood a statue. Its name had been forgotten. Not lost suddenly, but slowly. Like a word used less and less, until it was no longer spoken. The statue's arms were worn smooth. The face was blank. Birds perched freely on its shoulders, unafraid. They did not know it was a god. They only knew it was stone. The altar in front of it was cold. Once, offerings had covered it. Fruit, bread, wine. Now there was only dust, and a single dried leaf. The leaf had fallen there on its own. No human hand had placed it. The god did not mind. Gods do not count offerings. They notice time instead. The floor of the temple held cracks. Small plants grew in them. Green life pushing gently upward. Never rushing. Never asking permission. Nature was polite, but persistent. A lizard moved slowly across the marble. Paused. Then continued. It did not disturb anything. High above, Athena once passed near this place. She did not stop. Not because she did not care, but because care does not always mean action. Wisdom recognizes when quiet is enough. Somewhere beyond the hills, Apollo's light touched the temple walls. Only briefly. The sun did what it always did. It nodded hello, then moved on. At dusk, the shadows grew longer. They stretched across the floor, meeting and separating again. An old dance without intention. The statue remained still. Gods are good at waiting. They wait through centuries, the way mortals wait through minutes. Night arrived without announcement. The sky darkened gently. Stars appeared one by one, slow and patient. The temple did not react. It had seen this many times before. An owl landed on a broken beam, tilted its head, and watched nothing in particular. Silence had weight here. Not heavy, just present. Below the temple, a road curved through the land. Only one traveler walked it tonight. He walked slowly, not because he was tired, but because the road did not ask him to hurry. Each step landed softly. Stone, dust, grass, He did not look up at the temple. Not out of disrespect, but out of habit. The gods did not require attention anymore. They had already received enough. The traveler paused briefly, then continued walking. The temple remained behind him, unchanged, unbothered. Inside the temple, wind passed through the columns again. Dust lifted, settled. The leaf on the altar moved slightly, then grew still. Nothing was added. Nothing was taken. This was not neglect. This was rest. Gods, temples, and stories do not disappear all at once. They fade quietly, like the last moments before sleep. Eyes grow heavy. Thoughts blur. The temple did not feel forgotten. It felt complete. Let your own thoughts do the same. Allow them to soften. Nothing here needs meaning. Nothing needs memory. Just quiet stone. Slow wind. Endless time. Breathe in softly, and let the air leave you on its own. Long after the temple was quiet, a god walked across the land. He no longer remembered his name. And that was all right. Names are useful, but they are not required. This god had once been called upon for something small. Safe travels. Good harvests. Calm mornings. Nothing dramatic. Over time, people stopped calling. A little at first. Then more. Until one day, no one called at all. The god did not vanish. He simply began to walk. His footsteps were light, barely touching the ground. The path he followed was not marked. Grass bent gently beneath him, and rose again after he passed. He walked past stones, stacked long ago by hands now forgotten. He did not wonder who placed them. Memory is tiring. The sky above him shifted from pale blue to warm gold. Not suddenly. Not clearly. Just enough to notice. If you were paying attention. The god walked on. He felt no hunger. No urgency. Time followed him kindly. Not pushing. Not pulling. A stream crossed his path. The water moved slowly, wrapping around small stones. With familiar sounds. The god stepped into the stream. The water reached his ankles. Cool. Patient. He stood there for a moment, and felt the current pass. Then he stepped out. There was no reason to dry his feet. They would dry themselves. He continued walking. In the distance, the outline of hills rose gently. Not sharp. Not challenging. The god did not aim for them. They simply existed where he walked. A bird flew overhead, then disappeared. The god did not look up. Awareness does not always require attention. Near dusk, he reached an old road. The road had once connected important places. Now it connected nothing. Stone slabs lay uneven, their edges softened by years. The god followed the road, because it existed. That was enough of a reason. As the sky darkened, the stars emerged one at a time. Each star took its place calmly. The god recognized some of them. Not their names. Just their familiarity. Night settled softly. In a nearby field, sheep lay close together. A shepherd slept nearby, leaning against a tree. The god passed them quietly. The sheep did not stir. Even animals understand calm presence. Far away, other gods remained where they always were. Zeus sat without concern. Hestia watched her fire. Hades oversaw his orderly halls. None of them noticed this wandering god. Not out of neglect. Out of trust. Gods do not worry about each other. The god walked through a village. He passed houses filled with soft breathing. He felt no need to enter. Dreams were private. A candle burned behind one window. The flame wavered slightly, then stabilized. The god paused, just long enough to notice. Then he continued. The night grew deeper. The world became simpler. Shapes softened. Sounds thinned. Even the footsteps seemed quieter. At the edge of the village, the god found a stone bench. He sat down. No ceremony. No expectation. Just rest. He looked at his hands. They were steady. Unremarkable. They had created no storms. They had saved no heroes. And that did not trouble him. Greatness is not required to exist. He leaned back slightly and felt the cool stone beneath him. The stars continued their slow journey. The god sat and did not think. This was what remained. When worship faded. Not loneliness. Quiet. Not loss. Stillness. If your thoughts are slowing now, let them drift. You do not need to understand. You do not need to remember. Just walk. Sit. Rest. As gently as the nameless God, who asked nothing and received sleep. Take a slow breath in. Hold it gently and let it go. High above the quiet land, Mount Olympus rested beneath the sky. Not shining. Not glowing. Just standing. The mountain did not compete with the clouds. The clouds did not rush past it. They met each other slowly, as they always had. On a wide stone terrace, the gods remained exactly where they were. It was an afternoon that felt endless. Sunlight drifted across the marble floor, moving so slowly, it was almost impossible to notice. Zeus noticed it anyway. Not because it mattered, but because he had time. He shifted slightly on his throne, just enough to be comfortable again. The throne did not react. Stone accepts weight, without judgment. Nearby, an empty goblet stood untouched. The wine inside had grown warm. Zeus did not mind. Warm wine still existed. That was enough. Hera sat near a low table, sorting nothing in particular. Her hands moved slowly, touching fabric, then stopping. She wasn't preparing for anything. Preparation is tiring when there is nothing coming. Hestia's fire burned softly. Not bright. Not dim. It flickered in a way that suggested it could do this forever. She added no wood. She removed none. Balance knew what it was doing. Athena leaned against a column, watching light move across stone. She did not calculate its angle. She did not care how long it would take. Knowledge can rest. Apollo lay stretched out nearby, his lyre beside him. He did not play. He did not hum. Music waited patiently. Beauty does not disappear when it is quiet. A breeze passed across the terrace. It did not announce itself. It moved a loose strand of hair, then moved on. Hermes arrived, and did not leave. He stood near the edge of the mountain, looking at the land below. His wings rested. Messages could wait. Far below, the sea shimmered faintly. Poseidon could feel it. Even from here. He did not reach for it. The waves knew what to do. Time slowed on Olympus. Moments stretched long enough to lose their edges. No one marked the hour. No one asked what came next. Even the sun seemed uncertain about continuing its journey. Shadows remained where they were. For a long while. A long while was acceptable. In a shaded corner, a minor god slept. No dreams. Just rest. Gods sleep differently than mortals. They don't escape. They simply pause. Above them all, the sky remained soft and wide. Nothing fell from it. Nothing demanded attention. This was not boredom. This was peace. Without decoration. Let your own body mirror Olympus. Still. Heavy. Supported. Nothing pulling you forward. Nothing chasing behind. Just this moment. Stretching gently. Like a long afternoon. That never needs to end. If your thoughts drift away, let them. If they return, let them pass again. Olympus will remain here. So will rest. Take a slow breath in, and let it fall out of you. There is no descent to fear. No darkness to resist. The underworld was never loud. Far below the world of stone and olive trees. Beneath roots and memories. The underworld rested. It did not hide. It simply existed where light was no longer needed. A wide river moved through it. The water was dark, but not threatening. It flowed at a steady pace. The same pace it had always known. Charon guided his boat across the river. Not fast. Not slow. Just enough. The boat creaked softly. With each small movement, the sound repeated itself. Over and over. Oars dipped into the water. Rose again. Dipped again. Nothing changed. No one spoke. The souls aboard the boat stood quietly. No fear. No excitement. They had already let go of those things. On the shore, other souls waited in an orderly line. Waiting had become familiar. When something lasts forever, patience becomes automatic. Hade sat on his throne. Not sharp. Not cold. Just dark stone shaped over time. He did not lean forward. He did not lean back. He simply sat a day. His crown rested comfortably on his head, as if it had always belonged there. Because it had. Documents lay beside him. Lists. Records. He did not read them right now. They would still be there later. Persephone walked slowly through an open hall. Her footsteps barely echoed. The floor was smooth beneath her feet. She touched a wall as she passed, feeling the cool surface. It grounded her. She stopped beside a pale garden. Not lush. Not dead. Just quiet plants growing at their own pace. She bent slightly, adjusted one stem, then straightened again. No growth spurt followed. That was fine. In the distance, Cerberus rested. 3 heads, all asleep. Each chest rose and fell, in slightly different rhythms. Even guardians need rest, when nothing ever tries to pass. The torches lining the halls burned steadily. They did not flicker dramatically. They had learned consistency. Further back, a soul sat on a low stone bench. He had been there a long time. He did not count. Time did not behave the same here. He rested his hands on his knees and breathed. That was all. The underworld did not punish him. It did not reward him. It simply held him, like a deep pause between 2 thoughts. Above, far away, seasons continued without the underworld's concern. Here, nothing rushed in. Nothing rushed out. Charon returned his boat to shore. The wood made the same sound against the stone dock. It always made. He tied the rope, sat down, and waited. Waiting was not boring to him. It was familiar. Hades closed his eyes. For just a moment. Not sleep. Just stillness. The underworld continued its slow rhythm. Unchanged. Undisturbed. Let your breathing match it. In. Out. No drama here. No endings. No beginnings. Only calm continuity. Only rest. Take a slow breath in. Let it move out gently. Nothing needs to stay sharp anymore. Long after the gods stopped being named, and long after temples became stone again, the stories of Greece began to grow faint. Not suddenly. Not all at once. Just slowly. The way sounds fade when you stop listening. Mount Olympus still stood, but fewer noticed it. Travelers passed without looking up. Clouds came and went, without explanation. The gods were still there, or perhaps they were not. The difference no longer mattered. Zeus did not throw lightning anymore. Not because he could not, but because no one waited for thunder. Hera no longer listened for promises. Athena no longer advised heroes. Apollo's music softened, until it blended with the air itself. No applause followed, and that was fine. Hestia's fire continued to burn, even when no one gathered around it. Fire does not require recognition to give warmth. Hermes walked fewer paths. Roads blurred. Messages dissolved into routine. Even Poseidon allowed the sea to forget his name. Waves moved in and out, obedient only to the moon. Below the surface of history, the underworld continued. Souls came. Souls stayed. No one announced them. Hades still Saturday. Persephone still walked. Names mattered less than rhythm. On the surface, villages changed. Houses crumbled. New ones rose. Children slept, without being told stories of gods. They slept just as well. The olive tree still grew. They did not care who once prayed beneath them. The roads wore down, until they returned to earth. Stone forgot it was once shaped. Time did what it always does. It softened edges. It blurred meaning. And yet, nothing was truly lost. Silence replaced noise, like night replaces day. The myths did not cry out. They rested. Stories are like breathing. They expand when needed. They fade when finished. This was not an ending. It was a long, peaceful pause. The kind that comes before sleep. If your thoughts feel farther away now, let them go. They know where to go. Without instructions, there is nothing left to follow. No hero to watch. No lesson to remember. Only calm. Only drift. Even memory can rest. Even stories fall asleep. Breathe in. Slowly. Without effort. And let the breath leave you. Whenever it feels ready. There is no story to finish now. There is only the soft space. Between thoughts. Long after myths stopped being told. Long after names faded from memory. The world continued quietly. Mount Olympus still existed. In the same way a shadow exists at dusk. Not clear. Not gone. Just there. If someone happened to look. But no one needed to look. The mountain did not mind. The sky above it widened. Without interest in being seen. Clouds drifted lazily. Forgetting where they had come from. And not caring where they were going. The gods did not gather anymore. Not because something ended. But because gathering was no longer necessary. Zeus was no longer a king. He was simply presence. Hera was calm space. Athena was still thought without words. Apollo became warmth. Without sound. Hestia remained a steady glow. Even when no hearth existed. Poseidon was movement. Without name. Hades was quiet balance. Persephone was gentle returning. Nothing separated them now. Nothing required form. Across the land. Stone softened back into earth. Temples became hills. Altars became dust. Offerings became wind. The village paths blurred. Until they were remembered only by tired feet that had walked them. Trees grew old. Then older. Then became part of the ground they stood in. Seasons moved. Not forward. Not backward. Just through. Night arrived each day. Without announcement. Sleep spread easily. In homes that no longer stood. Dreams still happened somewhere. Unclaimed. Unnoticed. The sea breathed in. Then out. Again. And again. No god listened. No one needed to. Even the underworld softened. Lines disappeared. Halls grew wider. Quiet folded over everything. Layer by layer. Not silence that feels empty. Silence that feels full. Like a deep room. With no edges. Time itself became gentle. Minutes loosened. Hours blended. Nothing marked them. Nothing counted. Thought slowed. Then drifted. Then rested. If you can still hear words. They no longer ask for attention. They pass like clouds. You do not bother naming. Your body knows what to do now. It has done this before. It will do it again. There is no need to stay awake. There is no need to imagine. Everything has settled. Stories are sleeping. Gods are sleeping. Even the idea of gods has set itself down. And you can do the same. Just rest. Just rest. Just rest. Take a slow breath in. And release it without paying attention. There is no story now. Only movement that barely moves. After everything had settled. After gods no longer held form. Time continued quietly. Time did not know. It was supposed to stop. It simply kept being. There were no days anymore. No nights either. Light softened into grey. Then softened again. Not dark. Not bright. Just gentle presence. Mountains no longer stood tall. Not collapsed. Just less interested in standing. Their edges smoothed. Their height became irrelevant. The land rested flat and patient. Like a body fully relaxed. Wind crossed the world slowly. It did not search for trees. It did not shape clouds. It just moved. Because movement was possible. Once, this breeze might have been a god. Or a breath from a god. Now it was simply air. And air was enough. The sea still breathed. In. Out. The rhythm never changed. Waves forgot how high they once rose. They forgot how deep they once fell. Motion existed without purpose. Deep within the world. Stone remained stone. Not foundation. Not ruin. Just material resting peacefully. Nothing needed to hold anything up. Nothing needed support. Thought itself grew slower. Ideas arrived. And immediately laid down to rest. They no longer tried to connect. They drifted apart gently. Like leaves on quiet water. If a god still existed somewhere, it did not notice itself existing. Awareness had softened. Like the moment just before sleep. When you forget your own name. And feel perfectly fine about it. This place did not ask questions. It did not offer answers. It simply allowed everything to stay exactly as it was. Unfinished. Unexplained. Unconcerned. Rest stayed. And stayed. And stayed. Let the next breath come on its own. Do not invite it. Do not guide it. Just notice that it arrives. And leaves. After time continued for a while. It began to thin. Not ending. Just becoming less solid. Moments stretched so widely that they stopped feeling like moments. They became space. In this space, nothing had a beginning. Nothing waited for an ending. If you tried to locate yourself here, you would not need to. Location no longer mattered. The land did not remember being land. It felt no responsibility to hold weight or shape. It rested as openness. The sky did the same. It did not sit above anything anymore. It surrounded gently, like a soft blanket, with no edges. There were no directions. No up. No down. Only a calm sense of being held. Once, gods moved through the world. Once, stories followed them. Now, movement happened. Without identity. A slow shift. A mild change. So mild it almost didn't happen. Sound no longer traveled. Not because it was forbidden, but because there was nowhere it needed to go. Silence stayed complete. Not empty. Comfortable. Like a quiet room. You already know well. Thoughts appeared here sometimes. But they arrived without words. More like feelings. Then even those feelings grew tired. They rested too. Breath continued. In. Out. You did not need to count. Your body already knew the rhythm. It had known it long before stories. Long before gods. Long before sleep itself had a name. Nothing watched you. Nothing evaluated this moment. You are allowed to soften fully. To become heavy. To disappear slightly. Without vanishing. This space did not demand awareness. Awareness gently dimmed on its own. Just like the light. At the end of a very long day. Every part of you that worked earlier is working now in silence. Heart, lungs, nerves, all continuing. Without asking permission. There is nothing else to do. And that is enough. Let the space between breaths grow. Let it widen. Let it hold you. The way it holds everything else. You can stop following the words now. They will move on without you. Breath moves in. Breath moves out. It does not need help. Somewhere beyond noticing. The space you are resting in becomes wider. Not larger. Just softer. Edges lose interest in staying edges. The idea of a world grows faint. Not gone. Just unnecessary. Once, myths explained things. Now, nothing asks to be explained. The land rests without landness. The sky rests without skyness. Even rest begins to rest. If a memory drifts by, it moves gently. It does not stay long enough to introduce itself. You do not need to remember where you were before this moment. That place has already relaxed. Time passes, but quietly, as if it knows it should not interrupt. There are no markers here. No next step. No previous step. Only this slow, even presence. That feels familiar. Without being specific. The body settles deeper. Muscles release in places you didn't know were holding. The face smooths itself. The jaw loosens. The eyes remain still. Inside, thoughts become fewer. Then simpler. Then softer. Eventually, they become more like distant weather that no longer belongs to you. Breathing stays. It always does. Nothing watches the breath. Nothing judges whether it is deep enough. It is exactly right. Because it exists. Long ago, gods once filled silence with names. Now silence fills itself. And it is comfortable doing so. If you are drifting now, that is natural. If you are still partly here, that is also fine. There is no wrong position. For rest, everything present is allowed to continue exactly as it is. And everything tired is allowed to fade. Stay as you are. The space will hold you. You don't need to listen anymore. The words will continue on their own. Breathing happens. Then happens again. It does not belong to you. It never really did. Long before myths were spoken. Before gods gathered on mountains. Before names were needed for anything. There was this quiet. This quiet did not begin. It did not arrive. It was already here. The stillness beneath stories rests without effort. It does not ask to be noticed. It simply allows everything to settle inside it. If there was once a world, it is no longer important to remember it. If there were once gods, they have already softened into nothing specific. Not gone. Just no longer shaped. Shape rests now. Form relaxes. Even the idea of rest slows down and becomes gentle. The space you are in does not need to expand. It is already wide enough to hold everything without touching it. Thoughts pass through here sometimes. They do not speak loudly. They drift like mist and fade before becoming anything solid. If one lingers, it will become tired and lie down on its own. Nothing has to be pushed away. Nothing has to be invited. The body understands this place. It has returned here every night without being told how. The weight in your limbs is not heaviness. It is permission. Muscles release carefully, one after another, without a signal. Shoulders loosen. The place behind the eyes becomes darker, softer, quieter. You do not fall asleep here. Sleep simply opens, and you are already inside it. Time becomes irrelevant. If minutes pass, they do so silently. If hours drift by, they do not announce themselves. There is nothing to keep track of, nothing to miss. The myths were never meant to be remembered forever. They were like footprints in sand that expected the tide. The tide has come. Gently. It did not rush. It did not erase aggressively. It smoothed. Names softened first. Then faces. Then stories. What remains is calm without explanation. A deep, even calm that does not belong to any culture, any god, any language. It is older than all of them. It is familiar because you have always known it. Breathing continues like a quiet wave. In and out. The pause between breaths becomes longer. Not forced. Just natural. That pause is safe. That pause holds you inside it. Nothing is required. Nothing is asked. Even awareness rests its head and becomes quiet. If the mind wakes slightly, it will see there is nothing to do and return to rest. If the body shifts, it will settle again without effort. Everything knows how to complete itself. The quiet does not end. It does not deepen dramatically. It simply remains exactly as gentle as it needs to be. You do not need to reach sleep. You are already surrounded by it. Just let go. Just stay. Just rest.